I have a feeling this one's not going to go so well. So, Space Island is an interesting one compared to the other islands in the franchise. While others tend to have a theme or motif that is in itself MSM inspired, Space feels like it has a clear direction that aims to give off a sound inspired by other media. This makes it a decently loved song that I've been waiting to do for a while now, and that's because certain aspects of this song are really interesting. So, like always, we are going to start off with the bottom three monsters, and in this case, number 3 is quite the doozy. I don't think it can get more controversial than this, but number 3 is the trio of Riditoot, Sousa, and Toejammer. These monsters don't sound at all bad on their own, and to be honest, their melody is decently made. It's just the fact that this is just blatant waste and it irritates me. Toejammer I can understand taking melody at this part, and if it was just it, then we'd be talking about something else. But why on earth do they have 3 monsters doing literally the same thing, technically 4, and how come in 2 cases it was their only other song besides Continent? Riditoot got absolutely butchered in all of its forms of being an adult, since it's either awfully awful, like Psychic Island, or it's just a carbon copy like this one. Sousa is even worse than Riditoot because think about the fact that this is Sousa's only adult island so far. At least Riditoot was awe-inspiring on the continent. Sousa only was decent on the continent and literally has nothing else to this name. Worst of all is I could forgive all of this if it weren't for the fact that a sousaphone and an oboe would have been so amazing in this song if they just used them better. Instead we got 3 monsters playing the same decent melody over and over again, and it all just slogs on with nothing interesting. Second place is a really painful one to place so low to the bottom, Cybop. In order to explain this one, we must first talk about MSM's fundamental concept. Every monster has a role, a defined purpose that makes them what they are and helps them stand out among others. Even monsters that do similar things like Dandidoo and Toejammer have twists on this concept to make them stand out among each other. Cybop from day one has always been a scatting monster, just random noises filtered through a fan-like vocoder to give off a robotic voice. That was its entire identity, a very rusty, dingy, gruff, scatty voice. The reason it places so low here is because this track and all of Dawn of Fire has completely ruined and butchered Cybop's purpose and inspiration. I can understand why they thought it'd be a novel concept to put the space vocal on Cybop, but it's way too much of a departure from what the monster did before. It's not even clever or interesting enough to warrant it. Instead, all we get is just this dumbed down version of an amazing monster that plays a little bit at the end of the song in a weak way that adds nothing to it. The worst part is the fact that any other monster, and this would have been fine. The issue is the fact that Cybop sings in an already human concept. Scatting is just singing without words, as opposed to other monsters that say a specific phrase. So the one monster they choose to vocalize on this song just so happens to be the one monster whose entire purpose is to do the exact opposite. Number 1 is just another punch to another popular monster, but I honestly do not see why anyone likes this thing outside of obvious reasons. Candelabra is atrocious on this island and is just peak awful. Let's take a look at all the monsters in the verse it plays in and see exactly how well it works along with them, shall we? It does not pair well with Sponge because they're both trying to cover up everything else. It starts too late to be satisfying when paired with Furcorn. Its rhythm does not match Potbelly's at all, and everything else in that verse just feels drowned out at parts. Candelabra refuses to do anything with any other monster. It always tug-of-wars attention away, and it gives me auditory whiplash. I really don't like this monster musically, and I really think they butchered their first Penta Elemental hard. I can understand why people like this monster, and all power to you, but I honestly just have nothing positive to say about it. It ruined this song when it came out way back when, and to this day it still remains the #1 worst monster on the entirety of the song. Dishonorable mentions include the following monsters. Clamble was by far the most hyped up monster for Dawn of Fire, and the fact that this is the track it was given is so laughable that it stops being funny. Congo doesn't really do anything, and it's just really underwhelming. Only thing I like about it is the way its eyes move in the playing animation. That's pretty nice. Sponge is really, really loud and completely changes a verse we've all grown to know over the years, and I hate it so much. Also, its synth voice thing just sucks. Snazer is such an oddity on this song since for some reason they decided to shove bass strings up its nose. If they didn't do that with the monster abuse angle, the song probably would have been better. Okay, so Space has a lot of really low points, but I know a lot of people like this one, so let's start talking about the good stuff to counteract all that negativity. Third best is honestly really surprising. Pummel. This is one of the most overlooked monsters, and in most cases I can easily see why. Really low toms are usually not very noticeable in songs, and Pummel being exclusively that makes it rather hard to appreciate unless it really fits the theme of the song it's used in. This song is one of those instances, as the heavy bassy bellows it rhythmically thumps out are super critical to this song's identity and personality. This song would not be the same without Pummel's consistent bashing to keep it flowing. BBB doesn't really do a lot with this monster, but I honestly think it is really underrated, and I don't mind when it comes up on new islands at all. Next up at number 2 we got our main monster, Furcorn. One thing I never understood is the fact that everyone always gravitates to the trio chorus melody when Furcorn is standing like right there. This melody eclipses the other in terms of quality, and the funny part is, it's not even supposed to be the full focus of attention. It just takes it because of how superior it is. Furcorn's vocal performance on this island is really top-notch. I'd go so far as to say it ranks among some of the best vocal work in MSM. Definitely Furcorn's best vocal performance. The way it starts off calm and subtle but builds to a sudden triumphant high note just wrecks every fiber of my being, and I really appreciate it. Only real downside is the fact that everything else in that verse is just really loud. So Furcorn kinda gets drowned out in the current version. Putting that little smidge aside, Furcorn on this island is practically a perfect monster, and it pairs swimmingly with the rest of the cast. Number 1 is such a non-shocker that you probably guessed it literally when the video came out and you saw the thumbnail. Shocking absolutely nobody, the number 1 best monster is once more Stog. But this time, I can safely say we've reached peak Stog. Stog absolutely makes this song. Every single thing about Space Island's upsides can, in one way or another, be traced back to Stog, no matter what you think is an upside. If you like us and look for strengths within traditional compositional stylings, then Stog blows it out of the water. If you like Space Island just as is and don't really care for traditional rulings, Stog still carries the ending part and sets up for the opening. And if you love Space Island purely for the main chorus, Stog's got your back there, and it also plays the exact same melody as everyone else. You literally can't go wrong with Stog no matter which way you angle it. Everyone gets what they want unless for some reason they just want less Stog. Not much else needs to be said about Stog that hasn't already been said to death by us, so there's no reason to keep running this longer than it needs to be. Bottom line is, Stog is a perfect monster and nothing will ever change my mind about that. Honorable mentions include the following monsters. Potbelly duets with Furcorn beautifully. The only issue we have with the monster is the fact that it is really, really loud. Drumpler is decent in the song in-game, but where it really shines is the soundtrack. Go listen to the soundtrack and you'll understand why Drumpler is the right monster for the outro. Bogart is perfect on this island in every way. It just doesn't really fill the necessary roles that the 3 in the top do. Still, this is easily 4th. Pom Pom's best island, hands down. The way it accents the second half of the song is really good, and it's not saying English, so that's a huge plus. Deej has a lot of tracks that range from decent to really good. This one lands a good higher middle on that list. It's the best traditional Deej, aka all Deejes except Continent and Gold. So, Space Island is a really fun island to talk about because you can see with our top 3 picks that the song's biggest strength is just how different it is from everything else. Like I implied throughout the video, Space feels like it could have been in a franchise other than MSM and it'd still fit, which you can't really say for any other island. I say this because I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for what Space is trying to be, which makes it so sad that the ending score is going to be so low. Space is a really, really bad song in its current state, being awfully repetitive and boring to listen to since they just play the same 2 verses over and over again. All of the song's strongest aspects slowly got drowned out and covered up by a crockpot of loud blaring melodies and disruptive pace-breaking add-ons. The song has changed the structure like 3 times since its release, and every time it does, it just drones on longer and longer until nowhere near the original iteration. It is a far cry, a former shell of its former glory. I don't know how obvious this is, but I'm absolutely not doing Coliseum. I have a video planned for that, but it is not going to be a traditional YSM, so do not ask for it or you will be ignored. That being said, any other island in the game is fair game, so I'm excited to see what you guys are going to pick next. The rest of our selection for the islands are all really interesting to talk about, so no matter what, like always, I'll see you all in the next video. Alright, so Space Island was difficult to rank because we all really like some of the things about this island, but we all also understand how bad its current iteration really is. Originally the plan was for it to be the top of D, but we were able to finagle it to the top of C. This island is very similar to Cold Island, but on a more extreme degree. It has really, top-notch, incredible high points, but it also has the lowest bottom barrel bad points of almost any island. It's like a more extreme Cave Island. Cave Island gets a lot higher simply because the overall structure is sound, while Space's structure is candelabra toe jammer, candelabra toe jammer, candelabra toe jammer, deej. That's not interesting, no matter what way you swing it. I like the song. It is not a good song.